Hey, everybody, welcome back to Historians at the Movies podcast. I'm your host and creator, Jason Herbert, and every single week we are talking about movies and the histories behind them. And today we are not doing either one of those things. I am joined today with my buddy, Alan Malfavon. Buddy, we are in a state tonight.
Of grief, yeah.
Of grief. This is not a produced episode. This is going to be raw. For if you're listening in, you've already read the title of this. We're going to be spoiling everything. We're working through some stuff tonight. The first thing I need to show you, my friend.
Okay.
Is my mini
You got it.
Diego. I picked him up. I think I told you the other day at the store. I have to. So if you're listening in, this is me holding my 3 3/4 inch Diego Luna.
Excellent.
Cassian Andor, who is now so high up in my chain of Star Wars figures, I can't even. He's up there, man. Like, I actually have, I think, my 3 favorite figures, like, here on the 2 walls. All right, let's talk for a second. We're recording this late on what's tonight? Wednesday night. We watched
Wednesday?
last night.
Yeah.
Yesterday we watched the series finale of Andor, and then probably half of Rogue One afterwards.
I'm watching that tonight, actually. So,
buddy, I just let it go. Last night I was like, I'm just gonna watch. I had to get into it. I had to see him again. Especially after everything had happened. All right. We made a pact yesterday not to talk. And we talk almost every day. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling right now? You and I have not spoken about this
we have not
until just now. So how do you feel knowing that it's over? What are your thoughts on Andor writ large?
Oh, so I'll give you the short answer first, like the feeling answer,
Please.
and then I'll give you the thoughts answer. The feeling, it's a mix of elated but also devastated. Elated in the sense that we got something so artistically intricate, something so incredibly dramatic in the Star Wars universe, but also devastated that it's come to an end, right? So that's the feelings portion. My thoughts on Andor, and this is not a onomatopoeia, an exaggeration. It's just wow, right? It's just like probably the best Star Wars content I have memory of. Right, we have these conversations, right? You as an OT fan, me as a PT fan, right? We have our agreements and disagreements, right? We agree that they're much better than the sequel trilogy. That's for sure.
You don't have to bring that up, but go on. Yeah.
Right. But I'm just for the viewers and listeners, right? Yes. Just clarifying
where you and I are at. I'm an original. I'm a Holy Trilogy guy. You're a prequel trilogy guy.
Of course,
but we're Star Wars guys. We both grew up. Of course. We both grew up in bathed in the religion.
Absolutely.
So yeah, okay. So you're saying,
yeah. So like I was saying, it's just I don't know, man. It's just the writing of a character that back in 2016 I thought it was like it's a great character, right? Mexicans in space, let's go, finally, right? But after that, we never had any shape, form, or idea of how such a side character will become so damn important for the galaxy of Star Wars, right? And not only him, but all these new characters are. One might think peripheral to the story of Luke, Leia, and the rebellion. And I guess we're going to get into that. But the way by which Gilroy and the writing team and the production team of the show has centered them as the pillars of the Rebel Alliance and the history of Star Wars in the original trilogy, that to me just blew my mind. That's, I guess, how I can communicate what the answer that I just got asked by you.
Okay, so I want to echo your thoughts here because I'm filled with grief because it's over. Because there's no more Andor. The character is dead.
That,
right?
Toast to Andor Season 2. Salud.
Oh God, right? I'm filled with elation because of what we watched. Like you, and I've done some real hard thinking on this because for people listening, and I kind of said this the other night, I was born in 1977. Like, my dad literally went and watched the movie the day I was born, which is probably not the best thing. So I grew up, and we moved around a lot, and I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. What I did have was, like, this idea of this galaxy far, far away. And I would remember, like, I would go inward as a child. And, like, when I was lonely or whatever, like, Star Wars was always there. It was always waiting for me as a little boy, in the 80s. And then, there was this, into the early 90s, you got really this revival through the Timothy Zahn books,
Mm-hmm.
There was this really cool stuff with the West End Games role-playing stuff, if you got into that. There was some really cool literature that was kind of not on screen, but it still gave us some stuff. You know, it was like there was always the idea of Star Wars, right? This
Right.
place, you know, you could go to. And you know, the films since then have been hit and miss for a variety of different reasons. And I was saying this earlier today with a colleague. I was like, even in the sequel trilogy, there are parts that are really good, but you know, it's like, you know, it's just not there.
As a whole, right? As a whole, it's a
whole, it's a mess. And so Rogue One comes out 2006, and you know, you and I have spoken about this. It's like, you know what? We remember watching this. It's like, okay, this is good. This is a standalone film. It's good. It's better than it probably should be. You know, but all right, it's 2 hours, and they're rewriting the Kyle Katarn series and stuff like we're going right. It's like, okay, whatever. Probably Cassian Andor uses Kyle Katarn's pistol. Have you noticed this in the thing?
The Briar, yeah,
yes, sir. Right,
yeah.
So one of my favorite Jedi. So, and then they announce, hey, we're going to make an Andor series. I'm like, why? Do we need it? More Disney money grubbing? And then we watched it. And all I could think as I watched through Andor season 1 was this was the best Star Wars I'd ever seen on any screen ever. And that's hard to say because I think Empire is one of the best movies ever made, period. And then you're worried. You're like, okay, season 2 is going to come out. How are they ever going to even make something as quality as season 1? You know, we talk about all this Kino Loy, there's one way out. There, you know, I can't swim. Never more than 12. Like the quote, you know, the Luthen's speech, what have I sacrificed?
Right.
Everything.
Marva's dialogue. Yeah.
I watched it this morning as I was making breakfast.
Oof.
It's so good, right? So you're worried that season 2 is not going to stand out. Alan, it's better.
If I may, Jason, I would say it's not just better. It's a complete evolution of the show and the dynamics, right? Because I don't know if you noticed this, right? Season 1 felt so good because it was very kind of constrained to like not only a budget which you could see in the production, which is great, but also which allow for a story to be so basically dense, specific on these new characters, right? It's tight. This is that tight emphasis, but with all the world building and context that George Lucas was famous for in the original and prequel trilogy, but also with a drama and dialogue of series of the likes, I would say like Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah.
Like the same kind of writing like Vince Gilligan in Breaking Bad. I mean, Gilroy outdid himself, in my opinion, in some of his dialogue lines and some of his dynamics between the characters, to be honest.
Well, you know, the thing that I love so much, and I was listening to an interview with Gilroy earlier, was just like he's like I didn't have to. He's like I didn't have to care about Star Wars. He's like, and he's like I didn't have to respect it. I just wanted to write the story that I knew to be true that happened to be set in the Star Wars universe, right? And the thing that separates Gilroy's writing from everything else we've seen is his trust in the audience to allow us to see and feel for these characters, even the small characters. So we know out there that there's a young Luke and a young Leia growing up. And a lot of stuff taking place during the Obi-Wan. Like there's the fantasy elements are out there. They're out there doing their thing. But the phenomenal aspect of Andor was like, what do regular people do who are not wizards, who don't feel the power of destiny? What do you do? And the Empire is not this maniacal. Okay, there's the idea of the Emperors out there. We never once saw a lightsaber in this series. Didn't have to. You know, the things I loved was like, you know, the power of the Empire was represented by like a single TIE fighter strafing over a field,
right? Or bureaucratic mismanagement, right?
Right.
When Cassian gets into Narkina 5, right? Oh, an increase in the correctional facility, right? Because we're increasing the the offenses for just being caught, right? With no documentation, with no identification, right? 6 years, Narkina 5.
Yep,
it's like,
where you're going.
Wow, it's yeah.
It's so real.
It is.
It's so real and it's so raw. The thing I dug about season 2, I don't know how you felt about this. Season 2 focused even somehow less on Andor, on Cassian himself, right? And all of these side characters in season 1 became leading characters. Like even Luthen was kind of played down a lot in season 2. And there are characters coming out of the mix here, especially in season 2, that are just like, you know, Clea. Dude.
Yeah, that episode is just episode 10, by the way, season 2, episode 10, for those that are listening. It's just, I was not expecting that
No,
story, to be
no.
quite honest with you.
We had an Andor episode with no Andor.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Basically, the backstory of the manager of this whole underbelly of rebellion and sedition across the galaxy, right? And it's an incredible backstory, because I was not expecting any of that.
Because he's just some guy to start.
Right.
He's
Some
deserving.
guy that has PTSD from being forced to commit genocide in some godforsaken planet, probably the Outer Rim or something, right? At the start of the Empire, right? And as he deals with his inner demons, right, he finds little Clay as a stowaway trying to survive this genocide that he has enabled, right? And I think, as you said, Jason, this notions of real, right, that connect so much to our humanity in the real world, right? And I think that's why the public has loved, not just Star Wars fans, but critics too, right? They have loved this dynamic of how we see ourselves reflected in this galaxy far, far away, right? And how that medium can also tell us so much in lessons and in learning for us as people, right?
Yeah, so much of this, man. There's so hard. Like, okay, let's do a thing here.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to write down earlier who is the MVP of season 2
Oof.
of Andor, right?
A good question.
I don't have Diego Luna on my list. Like, he's
Right.
always there. He's carrying it. I don't want to give you my thing here, but if I would ask
Right.
point blank, who carries this season? Like, who is the star of this season?
Who is the star of this season?
Yeah.
That is a damn hard question, right? Because one could make the argument that the character I'm going to mention to you didn't really play a huge part in these last 3 episodes. But to me, this is a character that we saw first only a glimpse in a couple of seasons of the original trilogy. To me personally, the acting of this person is just magnificent, and it just humanized Chancellor Mon Mothma, Genevieve O'Reilly. I mean, to me personally, acting is just out of this world.
Yeah. I knew exactly you and I did not talk about this. I knew exactly where you were going.
No, we did not. By the way, everyone, we did not talk about this since like Monday that we're gonna do this, and we did a self-embargo on each other, even texting, "Hey, what's up?" We didn't do that.
It's like, yeah, Genevieve O'Reilly, I think probably is probably the MVP of this season as well, because she gets the best lines.
Yeah.
I mean, she does rise to become the leader of the rebellion, more so than Luke, more so than Leia. She's the administrator. She's the one who, does the heavy lifting here. And I was saying on Blue Sky the other night, I'm like, okay, you know what I want? I want Return of the Jedi, only starring Mon Mothma. You take any show, and this is what Gilligan does so well, like Breaking Bad. You can take a scenario and just show said scenario through different perspectives, through different actors, right? Through different characters. What does Return of the Jedi look like if we're telling Return of the Jedi through Mon Mothma's perspective? In other words, what is the behind the scenes thing where she's having to do the negotiation, where she's having to reassemble this fleet after the devastating effects of Empire? What does she have to sitting on the Bothan mission? All of this different stuff, right? And she's holding this stuff together. And maybe we see Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie across the room during the briefing because she's doing
peripherally.
Right, because this is about her, and we could do it. Do you know she is within the same year as the original actor right now?
Oof.
From
even James, as you said, even it's not Return of the Jedi leading up to that year, right? That year between Empire and Return of the Jedi, right? Because we're talking. If you guys have been following the comics, right? The year, it's a period of complete rebuilding, right? Because after Death Star 1, the Alliance gets almost wiped out, right? And that's what Empire it's basically about, right? It's almost total wiping out of the Alliance, and it's that buildup. And I think I 100% agree with you, Jason. We can have a show with Genevieve O'Reilly, not only assembling and sending the Botha spy mission, right? Maybe even sending the mission a code name like Andor Command or something in honor of Cassian, right? Like kind of like making those connections, those ties, but also, I mean, just the fact, right, of not knowing, right? Because we ultimately know that what happens with Death Star 2 is a trap by the Emperor, right? So also, how would she feel when she realizes that they've been brought into the trap, right? Like that is...
You want to see his cat and mouse game, I think, between Mon Mothma and Emperor Palpatine, who she has called out.
Yeah. The monster
two,
that comes for us all, right?
Yeah. So how does she reassemble this thing after, like, we did this thing, we blew up the Death Star, and then we just got our asses kicked. And everybody wants to quit.
Literally.
Right. How do I hold this together? I'm going to give you two more characters here.
Okay.
I want to give you two more thoughts here. And it's almost like each one of them holds a third of the series, of the season 2. Okay? Episodes, say, the first third of season 2. Adria Arjona is Bix. Here's the thing with Adria Arjona, and I want to be complimentary, and I don't want to sound condescending. This woman is so superhumanly beautiful. It's almost. I think I did text you this. She's hard to look at. She is not human in some ways. She's really good. She's a really good actress.
Like an incredible actress, yeah.
The heart that she carries this with, fighting through the drug use. She and Cassian are a thing now, or again, and
trauma of torture, right? The trauma of her torture.
I felt like she's the heart of the season 2 in so many different ways. You know, she was so amazing in this. So I don't want to miss out on the opportunity. The fact that this series ends with a shot of her, of all people.
That was heartbreaking. That shot was heartbreaking because what we know as an audience, right? What's going to happen to Cassian and the entire Rogue One unit?
I still think we needed it. I think we needed to know Cassian Surratt lives on in some form. Right? Now, part of me is like, God damn it, Bix, why did you have to leave him? Like, take him with it. I will sacrifice the I believe it. I believe in you guys now. I don't need a rebellion. I just want Cassian and Bix to be happy.
To be happy, yeah.
Yeah, you know? But she's single now, right? I'm just saying.
Hey, babe, look her up in the HoloNet, man.
Oh, buddy. I was like, hey, no, I can't do that. I'm in trouble. She is the second most beautiful woman I can think of right now. She is just crazy. An amazing actress. So I'm going to stop talking about that. I'm bad. Elizabeth Dulap as Leia Marquis.
Incredible.
Where does this come from?
It's funny you mentioned that because as a Star Wars obsessive fan that I am, I've been going on Reddit, subreddits to look at other people's reactions and kind of get into the conversation among other fans online. And somebody did some deep dive research on the actress's CV, resume, and they basically, other than a short film, which was her debut back in 2020, her season 1 and 2 are the only professional, big budget or actual professional acting credits in her career. And I'm just like, incredible. This is beyond incredible, right?
It's like stepping up and knocking out a grand slam for your first at bat in baseball. You know? She's like this kind of character in the first, and this is what I love, right? It's like the characters who were kind of in the periphery in that first season. She's, his assistant, and she's kind of hostile and kind of mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get this, her just genuine love for Luthen. She goes full on Bourne Identity in the hospital. I'm like, at the end, I'm like, look, I know Cassian can't survive. They can't kill Clea. Why do I care so much about her at the end of it?
Honestly, at that point, I thought she was in danger. I'm not going to lie to you, right? I thought she was in mortal danger.
Totally. And here's the point. Star Wars largely has been a story about men. Leia and later Rey being the general exceptions, right? Andor has somehow made this show and showing, right? Because Mon Mothma is the leader of the season 2 is carried by women.
100%.
Carried by women. And they do it in such a way where it's like, it never feels like fan service. It never feels like there's an objective. It's like, it was, and this is the credit to Gilroy, where it's like, the writing is so organic. It's like, of course, this is the way this would work out. This is what you have incredibly capable, empowered women who can do things, right? Or people who, it's...
I actually appreciate that when you say that about the role of women in Star Wars, right? I don't know about you, but Clea gave me a lot of vibes of what if Leia had been grown up lower class instead of a princess and really radical. It's that attitude, it's that decisiveness, it's that action, right? Every time Clea was telling, when Andor was basically ready to quit in the third arc of the show, and she's like, what are you talking about, right? This is what we're fighting for, to have the freedom of making our own choices. That's Leia Organa, right? That is that, but in a more decisive way, right?
Well,
in my opinion.
It is. You look, frankly, the 3 women here keep Cassian in line through the series. Right. Okay, Bix constantly saying we have to win. If we're going to suffer, it has to be because we're going to win. We have to win here.
Which, by the way, as Mexican myself, I gotta say that it's very Mexican. The role of women in your family keeping you on track, man. That is like incredibly on point.
Well, so you've got her. You've got Clea saying, "Hey, no, this is why we're fighting. These are the reasons." And then Mon Mothma going, "Look, like if Cassian, if you don't save her, all of this falls apart. It's not Luke, it's not Leia, it's not Han, Chewie who are at risk of losing the rebellion. It's Mon Mothma, dude. Who would lose?"
Right.
We've talked about so far 2 Hispanic actors. We've talked about Adria Arjona. We've talked obviously about Diego Luna. I want to ask you about another one. Benjamin Bratt.
Oh,
I'm going to say something that's awful.
All right, let's hear it, and then I'll check you on that, I guess.
Benjamin Bratt is my Bail Organa. All respect to Jimmy Smits, who I love. Love Jimmy Smits.
Listen.
Benjamin Bratt is I'm ride or die with Benjamin Bratt is Bail Organa.
The moment I saw Benjamin Bratt, I was like, let's go, blood in, blood out in space. Let's go, man. And I think we texted about this, right? I mean, I love Jimmy Smits as a prequel trilogy fan. I grew up with his portrayal of Senator Organa. To me, he feels very regal, very royal to the context of the prequels, right? That elegance of that, the decay of Republican decay. Yeah. Exactly. Benjamin Bratt is like, let's get, can I curse in this? Yeah. Let's get this shit done, right? It's like the way he actually handles Cassian's passion towards the end in the last episode when he's like, dude, I understand, but I gotta put you in check because you have to respect this council, right? I'm bringing authority to rebellion. Authority here. It's not just you. Exactly. And the power of that performance with Benjamin, also when he meets Mothma before the speech, right? And he encourages her to do what it's morally right, regardless of the consequences. And they're going to go after you. And he's like, I don't care. We're doing this because this is what's right? I mean, that sober determination, which Brad brings to the role of Senator Organa, I mean, to me, makes him incredible.
Can I tell you, best dressed? He and Mothma, far away best dressed in the show. Like, I was looking at some of the stuff. The capes, right? Here's some other stuff that I dug about the way they wrote Organa, and the way that Bratt plays it. Okay, one, all of this stuff leads to when Alderaan gets blown up. Like, we no longer think it's just a planet. Like, holy shit, we just lost Bail Organa. We just lost the complement to Mon Mothma because he's really the number
pillar,
the A1B. He's right there with her, right? Clearly, and for she actually has to kind of step up, and kind of voice herself over him. You're right. He's like grittier. He's like more demanding. There's that great line that K2SO says that man you don't like is here. I'm like, yes.
It's like incredible.
So, but he brings that gravitas that I think Smith was like sad in some ways.
Yes, like in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, right? I mean, I love his portrayal, but it's a portrayal based on worry on like the Empire always creeping on you, right? And I'm not saying that Bratt's performance wasn't showing that awareness, but at the same time, it's like, okay, we have the Empire breathing on our neck, even more so than the Jimmy Smith in Obi-Wan Kenobi, but it's a time of action, right? And it's a message that, I know we're going to link it eventually to real history and events, right? Because we're historians of the movies, but it's a call to determination. It's a call to do something. It's a call to stand up. It's a call to be active, right? That I saw in that character, right? Which made me really happy, right? That a Latino actor in the times that we're living in the Star Wars universe is saying those messages and inspiring such attitudes, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of other points here I think that are really important when we look at like Bratt's performance and the characterization of Bail Organa, right? Which is this. Never once do we hear anything about, oh my God, I'm worried about my daughter. Like, there's no like thing where it's like, hey, don't forget who I am. Don't forget who my daughter is.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink, right? Because this is not about Leia. It's not about Luke. It's not about Darth Vader. It's like Bail Organa is a hero. Bail Organa is risking everything as well. And it doesn't have to be force-fed. It's like, this is the heroism of this man.
Right.
This is what this is. There's that. And we talked about this just a second ago. Now I want to spell it out a little bit. They do this phenomenal job here about making this world a world when we talk about humans as people of color, and it's just not a thing. It's just like, yeah, whatever. It's like, okay, it's. I never get the sense of a tokenism, Alan, when I watch this, where I'm thinking like, okay, here's the African American person who happens like,
Right.
or like, okay, so one of my least favorite, Senator Pamela, right?
Right.
She's awful. Right,
which incredible actress, by the way. I mean, that she
terrific.
really sold us. She
On
sold
how
us
bad
on
she
that,
is.
right?
I'm like, why are you so bad at doing this? We have to go fight. Right. And my point is, oftentimes in these kind of things, you take maybe a traditionally marginalized person or something like that and make them
Right.
the martyr or the like.
Right.
No. If it turns out everybody's capable of making bad mistakes or whatever. Right. And there's the white guy too. I tried to look up his name, Senator Doofus McGee or whatever. I couldn't.
Oh, the one with the 70s scraggly beard.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So there was that. Can we talk a little bit about the Empire here and Dedra?
Please.
And Cyril. Like, okay, first of all, Dedra and Cyril, like that turned out to be a thing. I was like, no way.
Pretty wicked, kind of
kinky,
weird.
Kind of. What's that sex life look like?
I don't want to think about it, man.
It's lights off, Alan. It is lights off.
Oh man,
it's lights off in between 7 and 9 p.m. That's what it is. There's no morning.
Yeah.
Although, like, there was like this genuine affection, like when she stepped to the overbearing mother. Like,
oh yeah,
there's like an actual. And here was the cool thing I dug about this. So, like, Imperial bad guys have home lives. They have their marriages,
Which I think is great that you mentioned, Jason, because I think it's so important. It's so important for the viewer and for the Star Wars fan and the community to realize that evil is not 24/7 evil. Evil, it's a step after a step after a step, right? It's a collective effort, right? It's not just the Emperor being like, doing right, all the, or Vader breathing. That's not evil. That's not the Empire,
easy
right?
to identify.
Right, that's cliche almost, right? I think that's what I love about Andor, right? Which tells us that it only takes so much. It only takes this much to enable horrible things.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Evil just can be little. You doing whatever you got to do, no matter what, to get ahead, to move up in the scale.
Which at the end of the story, karma, right? Comes back after.
Oh, absolutely. And here was another thing. I want to talk a little bit about the grit here, because I don't know if we should do a warning here. But there's the scene where Cyril starts choking his wife, right?
Yeah.
We have suicides on this show. In the final episode, we have
suicides, attempted murder.
We have attempted rape. Oh my God,
man!
Adria Jonas. I want to go back to her for a second. I was like, "What are we seeing? What I think we're about to see? Like, we're actually seeing like these horrible elements of like the worst of humanity in Star Wars." And forgive me for saying this, Alan. This is what we've needed. Like, we've needed to see, like, in this idealized world, the people are capable of doing awful things, and we have to push back against that.
I'm glad that you mentioned that we needed it, right? Because it goes back, I think, to the root. I'm going to talk two things, if I may, real quick. George Lucas's grittiness with the original film and centering, right? I mean, George has been on a record with James Cameron saying, like, hey, the rebellion of the Viet Cong, the Empire is the U.S. occupation, right? There's all these parallels historical, whether you agree with them or not. And this is, I mean, to me, as a Latino, Mexican American, to see the whole discussion of this horrible pig of an imperial officer, right, that tries to commit sexual abuse on Biggs, on the character, and mentioning, right, the plight of undocumented farm workers in that planet, which echoes a lot of the plights of current undocumented workers in this country, right, and this reality. And also how people are taken advantage of for the sake of a better future, right? And that, to me, the fact that Star Wars went there was like, holy crap, this is like sending a message of like, hey, this is a franchise that cares about you. Yeah. Regardless of who you are, we care about portraying your story. Exactly. Thank you. We see you and we respect you as a person, as a human, regardless who you are, racially, documented. That is a huge, important message that the franchise had to put forward in this time. So, sorry, I didn't mean to
No, Alan, I feel like, listen, you and I have been friends for a long time, and I feel like this is such an
We have
important dialogue because I'm a white guy from Kentucky. I'm a big, straight white guy from Kentucky. I cannot ever imagine. I can't understand what it's like to move to the United States, to be a person of color here, or to struggle with the stereotyping, right? I know how I'm coded.
right,
I sympathize.
right.
I try to empathize,
Oh,
right?
you do, yeah,
But it can't resonate with me the way it might resonate, with a person from Mexico or from Venezuela or Costa Rica or some other place who comes here. It's like, I just want a chance to survive.
right.
And then, because of their position of weakness, they're targeted by law enforcement, by ICE, whatever, by people who would rape or hurt or maim or steal from them because they can't push back. Because
Because
they're
they can
weak.
speak up.
They can't speak up, right? Who are you going to tell? This power dynamic, and then gets implied, generationally. And there's no shortage of for those of you listening in, of amazing work. Some of them I've got tons over here to
All
speak
right.
to that, right? It's weird to say I needed to see these horrible things from Star Wars, but I needed to see this thing that I grew up with, saying that it grew up too.
I think, Jason, it's a showing of how Star Wars is also an organic thing that evolves with society and evolves with us as viewers, and it evolves with the world as human history, right? I think at this point it's not just science fiction slash fantasy. I think at this point it's an echo of the human condition, its history, its culture, right? Its politics that has kept evolving, right? Is been evolving over time. And I know we're talking about Andor, but I just gotta say, I don't know if I text you this. I went to the 20th anniversary screening of Revenge of the Sith, right, with my sister, and it was incredible to see the scene when Palpatine, right, just declares the Empire, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was 13 years old, dating myself here. I was 13 years old in Veracruz, in Mexico, watching this with tears in my eyes, seeing the genocide of the Jedi, but no political thinking yet. And then 20 years after seeing this, I got goosebumps and I was terrified, right? Of the parallels of the presence of these things. And I think Andor is very good at doing that. Maybe not presence, but more straight in your face type of situation, right? But I think it's needed. I think it's needed because we cannot, as we say in Latin America, we cannot simply try to cover the sun with our thumb, right?
Oh, I
We
like
can't.
this.
We cannot.
You got such a great point, because here's the thing. I think that as time goes on, the way we're gonna continue to think about, say, George Lucas, it really is this visionary guy who had so much to say, not just through Star Wars, but through even Indiana Jones and some the ways we think about faith, fact, person, who we are, family, things like that. Lucas, we don't need to beat on this, but Lucas's weakness is always as a technical writer, right?
Of course.
The message he's trying to send and the images he's trying to use, you can see those, say, in the prequels, where it's like, okay, this is what he's trying to say here, and it's not quite as sophisticated as, like, say, if you had like Tony Gilroy, like, saying taking George's message. But in a lot of ways, that's what Andor is. It's Tony Gilroy putting into words what Lucas was trying to say about resistance, about fascism, about hope, because ultimately this is hope. There are these moments of extreme, I was watching Gilroy talk about, like, his son saying, "Hey, how are you going to do the rebellion? The rebellion's built on hope." And then it's the guy behind the desk at the hotel.
Oh my God. Can we talk
Please,
about that
G-Man.
episode 8? What's that? No. It's just that was perhaps, and I know we texted right when we saw it last week. Yes, I was just like, Jesus Christ! I shed tears. I shed tears because those scenes of the empire, of the stormtroopers, imperial troops, regular troops committing just murder against the demonstrators. Right? As a historian of Mexico, that reminded me of the massacre of Tlatelolco in 1968. Right, with the student movement of '68. A friend of mine who's another historian, he's like, "Hey, that was the Amritsar massacre in India, 1919." Right? It echoes this historical moments, right? And as somebody who I didn't have family there, but I teach the subject, and I have family in Mexico City that knows people that have relatives that perished from state repression in '68, and to see that, it just made me cry, especially after seeing Diego's Cassian at the end, realizing that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the planet, Gorman, were being exterminated just for a tiny resource, a tiny, tiny resource, right? And it echoes, right, of how willing in our history as a humanity we've been willing to dehumanize the other, another group, right? In this case, the Gormans by the Empire, to get what we want, right? And I think it's a powerful, grim, at times horrible reality message that episode brings. Is harrowing, but it's needed,
You know, in
right?
Star
It's
Wars,
needed,
we've seen planets blow up. We've seen cities destroyed. We've seen
right?
mentors sliced down. We've never seen a massacre. An
Ever.
actual, and there's a couple brilliant things going on here. This show, we can talk about what this show does to Rogue One here in a minute. We'll kind of finish with that about what this does to Rogue One, because I think we'll have to. This elevates in some ways the Stormtrooper, like the ways
It does.
Stormtroopers are scary now. You know,
Man, they
But
can shoot.
the Gorman massacre, the fact that they're like, okay, we're gonna have a massacre on Star Wars, and it's going to be brutal, and the people you care about are going to die, and they're going to die horrible. And you could see I remember watching when they first get to Gorman. I'm like, immediately, I'm like, holy shit! Can we talk about like all the way down to the costuming, the way this mimicked the French Resistance?
Incredible.
As a historian, and I was saying this when we talked about the film Sinners, which I think is just one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Right?
By the way, incredible episode.
Thank you very much. You know, I think where art can be amazing is when it uses history in smart ways to tell these larger stories, right? And they are clearly, for people who are not familiar with the French Resistance, you are now, you know, because Gorman was clearly a stand-in for the French Resistance. All the way, the language, they created an entire language that sounded like French in Star Wars.
Like French. It was funny because when I
that?
And how do you commit all these actors to learn this imaginary language and portray it with such emotion? I mean, it was just incredible, right?
You felt it.
Was something else, man.
You felt it. You know, it was simply, you know, just amazing that the whole bit. Was there we need to go back and talk about Luthen.
Okay.
We need to. Luthen, I have a rule when I'm cruising through Instagram, which is this. Every time I come through Luthen's monologue, the what have I sacrificed monologue on Instagram, like, and there'll always be somebody like show a video.
Yeah,
I have to repost it every time because I think it's the single best monologue in Star Wars history. I mean, it's you know, the way that Stellan Skarsgård gives that, the way his voice cracks, the way it's imperfect. It's so amazing. Also, Hasbro, I still want my Fondor Hallcraft. Like, what the flip?
Please.
Dude, I'll take a Lego version. I want one the size of the Ghost. I want a Fondor Hallcraft. I can fly around my living room. Here's what I love what they did with Luthen, who played such a big role in the first, and then he's a big role in the second. But it's kind of like he's almost ominous for the good guys because Mon is clearly terrified of him. We know he's capable of doing horrible things. Yeah. Cassian and he are falling. I thought for certain like he's going to kill Bix at some point in time. I was worried about that.
I had the fear too. You know, especially when he goes knocking at her door and he's like, "Hey, how are you doing?
I was like,
what are you up to?" I was like, "Oh God."
Cassian's going to have to kill Luthen. You know, after he kills Bix.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that didn't happen. But you know, there was like this. You know, it was like everything that he said. He understood he was never going to make this out alive, and he was doing it anyway. And it's like this light of gratitude. He's talking about his fellows in the Alliance because they don't trust him, and they talk about him like he's dirt over in Yavin.
Right. I mean that episode 12, right? I mean they're like,
Clay doesn't want to go.
Why are you coming here? Why are you coming here with this information for somebody like Luthen? If you think about it, they're basically putting him on the same scale as this psychopath, which I think incredible psychopath, by the way.
He kind of had to be. Yeah.
Right. It's like the counter to Saw Gerrera's craziness, the same viciousness, but more lucid.
Yeah.
Right?
Forrest Whitaker.
Can we talk a little bit? Can we shout out Forrest Whitaker, Saw Gerrera? Because
let's go to Saw. We'll come back to Luthen. Go ahead.
I think it was like the second arc, right? When he has Woman inhaling rhydonium fumes.
Yeah, but now we know what he was inhaling when he was in Rogue One.
Yeah, exactly. It was like inhaling glue.
And
Basically,
he's
in real
losing
world,
his fucking mind.
he is. He's insane. He's insane completely.
And he's a guy who starts off. If you watch the Clone Wars TV shows, stuff like that, he's a different guy. And it's like, what
Completely.
war does he? Oh, you know what he has? This. You know who Saw Gerrera is? He's Colonel Kirk in Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now. Yes, you read my mind. I was gonna say exactly the same thing. He's seen so much carnage, sacrifice. I mean, can we talk that whole episode where Willman feels that he's gonna be assassinated by two tubes or one of the henchmen of Saw Gerrera, and the other guy's like, "Come on, just tell me where it is so I can get the exact combination for the radonium extraction," and he just shoots him in the head point blank, and he's like. I was like, holy crap, this guy's just killing his own people, right? But the ability that you almost need to be this psychotic to survive in this clandestine
Luthen
rebellion.
kills Lonnie sitting on the bench.
Oh my God.
Poor Lonnie. You knew Lonnie was never making it out.
Rest in peace, the real MVP. Oof. I mean, 2 hours going through 2 years of files just to discover the Death Star project? Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Talk about research.
But here's the thing, right? I love how the thing was like, when all this came to a head, it was like, now it's happening. It's happening now, right? Like, he discovered it. He's got to get to Luthen so Luthen can get that information out. And then, of course, Luthen kills him. But, I mean, wasn't surprised by that, at all. I think the thing that surprised me when it came to Luthen was, like, I was waiting for the Luthen-Dedra showdown. She shows like, oh, they're going to kill each other. This is how they're both going to, it's going to be that's too easy.
Right. Like a Clint Eastwood type of shootout type of situation, right?
But he pulls out the dagger, Alan, and I'm like, okay. That you don't, as a show writer, reveal a dagger in this moment and not use the dagger.
I was going to say, Jason, when he's talking about the dagger, right, and Dedra is playing this cat and mouse game with him, where they're talking and pretending, right? And she's like, are all these pieces originals? And he's like, well, there's actually only 2 pieces of dubious procedence. And he's talking about himself and Dedra, right? I mean, that was just like, oh my God, that's incredible.
So smart, right? It's like, oh my God. And the way that he's like, turns around and he stabbed himself. He's like, I win,
Seppuku, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's hard.
I'm dying with my honor, right? Is that like talk about the callbacks to Japanese culture and influence in Star Wars, right? Talk about this notions about dying with honor, right? Dying with your mission and not becoming captured by the enemy, right?
Yeah, and then of course, and then going back to what we ended up getting with that amazing thing where Clea has to go finish him off. Jesus, man,
extremely emotional, right? Extremely emotional because then they show you the training that he gave her. And
how did you feel about the Naboo scene? Did you recognize that as Naboo when they were sitting down there?
I recognized it. You know how the moment that they were showing only their faces, and I saw Clea's outfit, I was like, nah,
right?
There's only
how bad are we?
2 possibilities.
We're like, I can recognize that outfit from a planet.
We're big nerds, man. We're like, oh, that looks like the governor from episode 1 Regal outfit, right? It's very, very sumptuous, right? I was like, Naboo. Yeah. Immediately when they pan out to the river, I was like, that's Naboo.
And you know what? Here was the cool thing. It was a chance to revisit Naboo without, again, shoving it down our throats. They never said we're in Naboo. But if you know
or showing a Gungan.
Right.
Yep.
But what we saw...
Which I always think, what happened to the Gungans during the Imperial occupation, right? Like,
they're all dead, man.
Oh, man.
They're in hiding. They're the Gungan resistance now. Please. Like,
right. Yeah.
I don't know what happened to the Gungan. Not a Gungan guy.
I know, man.
But, it's like... I knew it was Naboo just by the way they were dressed and like like the social class.
Yes.
That's what Naboo was.
Yes, the dining, the utensils on the table, the cups. I mean, you could just tell the regalia of it. Yeah,
it's almost like Naboo.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like Vichy France, where they're like, oh well, we've moved on, like we've accepted what this is.
It's like, look at your dinner. Don't look at the stormtrooper type of situation, right?
Let's pretend this doesn't exist, right?
Right.
So, Dave, I really dug that. I want to ask you. Okay, we get there's this amazing thing where maybe our hearts got rescued because when Bix does the thing where she says, "Hey," she leaves "I'm leaving you."
Right.
Dude, that was hard to watch. The only thing keeping me from driving out to the nearest mountain here in Colorado and throwing myself from it after that was the K2SO reveal.
My God, can we talk about the K2 units in the massacre
They're
first?
scary. Let's okay, because I think when we first heard Andor, we're like, oh, okay, it's gonna be an Cassian and K2 show. It's gonna be they're the Han and
The
Chewie of
buddies,
this, and I thought it was
right?
brilliant for us to first time we see a K2 unit in Andor's first season one. It's not our guy, right? They're just
Right.
awful, and then
They're horrible, man.
yeah, I just got they're so cool. But okay, go ahead. The
No, no.
massacre scene, you know, they're
I was just gonna
unstoppable
say
killing
when
machines.
Terminator 2.
Uh huh.
That's what it reminded me, right? T1000 is when he's like, get the units, right? And the guy with the scar that, oh, I hate that guy. And he's like, get the units, and he pushes the barricade of metal and just crushes like 7 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he tosses the daughter of that magistrate, right? Which tried to stop everyone from engaging in the trap. And she falls and breaks her neck, and then they're running, and then the guys are just throwing people against the wall. It's like, and no blaster can stop them. It's like,
They're unstoppable.
damn. Yeah, it's incredible, right? It's incredible to think the extent of resources by which the Empire used to commit such evil, right? They had
We
everything
specialize in
checked, man.
genocide.
Yeah, basically, we are specialists on it.
Sounds like another empire I can think of right now.
Yeah,
And I thought again, the introduction of this K2, where like I was like, oh, okay, they got this one. I wasn't even expecting for that one to be the one to be our K2. And it's like it was like a last second thing where Cassian's like, oh hey, let's throw this guy in here. You know?
actually,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then we finally hear Alan Tudyk. At the end, it's like, would you please point that down? I was like,
incredible.
he's so fucking perfect, Alan. And then like that last on episode 12, right? We got K2 in full K2 glory. Like he's like
We did.
he's like a puppy, right? He just kind of like I'm gonna kind of go do this thing over here, right? Or I'm gonna go kill the bad guys and stuff like that. It's like, uh-oh. And it's like, I've cleared the area, and he's just like, God, I just love how how brutal honesty is, the shit talking, you know?
And how brutal he can be too, right? I mean, to me, he's like a puppy mixed with a rancor. Or
Yeah.
like the Rancor from the Mandalore from Boba Fett, where he's like a puppy Rancor, but he's vicious, right? It's just this weird thing of like, I don't like it here. Don't leave me alone. And at the same time, he's like, hey, are you with us? And he's like, nope. He just throws this ISB officer 40 floors down into the hole of Coruscant, right? Or just uses the sub-inspector's body as a shield as he goes
Oh,
through the hallway.
that was a really good scene. That whole hallway scene was just so freaking well
Yeah,
done, right? Because you're wondering, are they going to get through? Again, I'm the whole time going, am I the biggest Clea stan now in Star Wars? Because I was like, is she going to survive?
probably.
Also, can I
I'm
tell you,
kidding.
when
Yeah, please.
when Melshi was like, when he was like carrying her through, I was like, oh, maybe this will be.
Maybe.
Of course, we know he's not going to
Right.
get a couple more days either. It's like, God
Right.
damn it, you know. I was like, this. I want her to be happy. I need maybe her and Vel. Maybe that happens.
I think so. I agree. I agree. I ship them both. I think that could
Vel
happen.
deserves to be happy too.
I agree. She sacrificed a lot.
Well, if we get our Mon Mothma movie or series by Jason Herbert, Clea would have to play into it, right? She'd have to become
Of course.
kind of a, oh my gosh, you know who she just reminded me of now that I think
Yes.
about it. Okay, in the Timothy Zahn books, what's her name? Snow. It was Leia's. Leia had like there was a New Republic operative who falls in love with Akbar. I can't remember her name. Do you remember what I'm
I think I
talking
know who you're
about?
talking. Yeah, but I remember the name, but I remember the storyline.
Right? Like I can't remember her name either. If you're listening out there, please tell. Why do I say if you're listening out there? You would that obviously whatever.
They will.
Tell us, nerds, fellow nerds out
Fellow
there.
nerds.
Thank you. All right. Okay. So we've gotten through this. You and I are both. You know what? We haven't even talked about Cassian actually this entire episode.
The star of the
We
show.
haven't talked about Andor today. Let me ask you this, because this is a thing that I've started to kind of try to internalize how I feel about Cassian Andor. Where does Cassian Andor sit on your pantheon now of Star Wars heroes?
An excellent freaking question, and I'm gonna be as honest as I can be with
Please.
you, right? Being a prequel trilogy fan, right? I grew up as a kid with it. My number one was always, even before his fall to the dark side, Anakin Skywalker, right? To me, that was like as of yesterday night. And I talked with Shannon, my fiance, about this. I told her we're going to number one celebration Los Angeles in 2 years. We have to. I'm cosplaying for the first time as Cassian Andor, right? And I'm only gonna pay one encounter with an actor, and I'm by God hoping Diego Luna will be there to get that. And that to me, that should tell you already where he stands to me, right? Because like you said, he doesn't have the force. He's a street urchin. He's a refugee. He's a refugee, right? He's underprivileged. He's radicalized by his circumstances, right? To become a hero. And he never wants to be that hero. He just wants to get away.
Yeah.
But yet he knows that if he doesn't do it, nobody else will do it.
No one else
And
can do it.
exactly, and that to me makes the makings of a hero 100%.
When Clea opens the door, she sees it's Andor. She's like, of course it would be. You know, there was nobody else who could go and rescue Mon Mothma. There's nobody, right? And all I could think about, we'll talk about Rogue One in a second, was what a loss to the rebellion of its greatest operative. Because that's really what he's become, right? My favorite, likewise for you, has always been Obi-Wan. At least on screen. The nobility, the loneliness, the loyalty.
Best Jedi ever. That's why I'm wearing this shirt with him fighting Darth Maul right here. Yeah.
Obi-Wan has, if you ever go back and read the original Star Wars novelization from 1977, Lucas wrote about him as the greatest Jedi Knight. Now, we never say he's the most powerful. He wasn't the most powerful.
Right.
But he was the greatest because he embodied the virtue, the nobility, the honor, the sacrifice of what it meant to be, the humility of a Jedi.
I mean, let's start by saying who was his master.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, which is my favorite Jedi, right?
Right.
We talked about this because of those attributes that he learns from him, right?
Sure, right.
And then he gets the kind of the straight path, kind of the straight edge, kind of. So it's a good mix of honor, but also righteousness type of thing, right? He's not a rebel like his master, but he's kind of like
but he's not afraid to walk his own path, right? He is his own man, right? In a more capable, again, Attack of the Clones as Obi-Wan detective story, like a film. Oh. Like a better written Attack of the Clones would have been a film noir detective story of Obi-Wan tracking down Jango Fett. That's what
100%.
Right? And then you would have some side missions with Anakin, but I think Attack of the Clones is still Obi-Wan's story.
It is
of the detective story, and with a better
100%.
writer and frankly better director. Again, Lucas coming up, like the whole thing of you get the diner scene with Dexter and all stuff, and like there's this hidden underworld, bounty hunters, and all stuff. Like,
right,
the pieces were there.
It's just the dialogue.
The dialogue, and frankly, Lucas surrounded himself with yes men. Like, was it Rick? Who was the producer? Rick
McCullen. Rick McCullen.
Yeah,
McCullen, right?
Yeah. It was like it just wasn't there, right? Okay.
Like even if I may just quick, even the whole thing about the relationship between Padme and Anakin, it could be done, but the dialogue is the issue with that relationship, right? It's not as it should feel more tragic. There should be that impediment between him and her, right?
There should be this push and pull, though. We want this,
exactly.
But can't have this. And
exactly.
It's like there's this longing, she's 5 years older, blah, blah, blah. You can't have that at my age because at 5 years older than me, like you're 1,000 years old. But so Obi-Wan is my favorite Star Wars on-screen character. My favorite off-screen is Ulic Qel-Droma. I love that story between him and Nomi Sunrider. For those of you who aren't following along, ULICQEL-DROMA. God, him, Exar Kun. God, man, such a great story. It breaks my heart. Like the way that Nomi's heart gets broken when he falls. Oh, God, what a love story. Okay, that's that. Tony Gilroy.
Read the comics, kids, by the way. Please read those comics.
Jedi. All right. Kate. Oh, my God. All right. So, I think, though, I now have Cassian maybe at number 2. Let's go at 3.
Oof. Okay. Wow. That's good. No, I'm not judging, man. That's great, actually.
He's not a hero. He's not a villain.
Right.
He's like this pragmatist who is like lamenting what he has to go and do to set things right.
Right.
rest in peace, Ray Stevenson, because he was such a perfect. I think Cassian. It's like the direct comparison to Cassian is Han, but I think in my head I'm like Cassian would whip Han's ass. Like
100%, man.
he's even more ruthless somehow, right? He's serious. He's
I
like,
mean,
he doesn't have time for this shit.
imagine Han being sitting down at Mos Eisley Cantina and
The two
Cassian
of them
coming
facing
after him.
off. Oh my god!
Han would have taken the gun, but Cassian would have pressed something and blown up the whole stall before he even shot at him. Like, let's be honest,
Here's
man.
what happens: Cassian shoots Han before Han can sit down. Chewbacca tears off Cassian's head.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
I gotta show some love for our favorite Wookiee. But all of this is to say that I really, because Rogue One was Jen's story, really, in a lot of ways, right?
He was.
Right. But again, a part of the power of this was like taking a near peripheral, a side character, the supporting actor, and turned it and I love this because everyone is the star of their own show in their own lived experience, right? But I really feel like how do you tell this story? And God, man, Mon Mothman now, after Genevieve O'Reilly, watching her for 2 seasons on this, and the little bits here and there that we've seen of her, I hope that even if we don't see her any more Star Wars stuff, and I almost kind of feel like I don't want any more Star Wars of this. I've been on record. I'm tired of this timeline. I'm ready to move past the Skywalker timeline. You got 25,000 years of Star Wars.
Yeah, we do.
The James Mangold stuff is coming on, which I'm afraid that what they're trying to build in is like Balin resetting things way back when is what I'm afraid they're trying to do. Stop tying everything together. It's 25,000 years, Alan. It's
your separate thing, man.
In a galaxy, man. Tell other smaller stories. Anyway, so, but I do genuinely feel like now we have to look at Cassian as like tier 1 of Star Wars heroes.
Of course.
And I could also, again, I don't want to harp on this, but you're a Mexican man, right? What he must mean.
Oh man. And again, when you were starting going through memory lane, right? Like Obi-Wan, I was like, shit, I just put Cassian number 1. What about Qui-Gon? But at the same time, what he means to me,
that's the point, man.
It's just something else, man. Because man, in the past, Hollywood has not been kind to our community, to our culture, to our history, right? By any means, right? Exploited, misrepresented, right? Made fun of, and we have here one guy that sacrifices himself to basically enable the whole story of the original trilogy, right? He's honorable, he's courageous, he is vicious, conflicted. He's not a saint, but he's willing to do what it takes for good, right? And that is such a powerful message, right? In these times, I mean, like in 2016, right? It's kind of interesting the parallels, right? Political, historical, where both media formats were released, Rogue One and Andor, and how important the sort of representations are, right? To stand for who you are and where you come from and believe in yourself, right? Regardless of what. And that to me carries such an important message in Star Wars, right? And I'm sure that if you ask any other male Mexican-American Mexican fan, they will be fairly in agreement with what I'm saying, right? It's a huge deal, man. It's a huge freaking deal to have somebody like him, of the caliber of Diego Luna, portraying such an intricate character, right, in Star Wars.
I want to ask you, we're kind of coming here now. This is where we've been barreling into. Andor now is kind of formed, the 2 seasons plus Rogue One has now formed its own Star Wars trilogy. Star Wars speaks in
trilogies.
How do we think about Rogue One now?
Oof, that is a great question. I think Rogue One, I'm not saying it didn't feel this way back in 2016 or all these years. I've seen it since, or we've seen it all since. I think there's much more of a danger.
Yeah, there's a lot more at stake.
Right? Exactly. Thank you. The exact same words I was at a loss for. There's so much more at stake. Everything is more dangerous. Why? Because we know the extent of what the Empire is willing to do to stop the Death Star from leaking. I mean, that whole scene from yesterday's episode when Krennic puts the finger on Dedra Meero, I was like, is this dude channeling Darth Vader right now? Because that feels like Darth Vader in the room, right? I mean,
Orson Krennic's a great bad guy.
Is right. He's kind of like I'm such an evil bastard with the lowly people.
Feels right in Star Wars, man.
He does. He does.
So good.
And no worries. And that conflict of him not being willing to act exactly the same way to Lord Vader, and that is very, very prescient. Now that we've seen Andor, how he acts with his underlings, But when it comes to the higher dogs of Imperial administration, the dynamic duo Palpatine Vader, he knows he ain't nothing. As Vader says, this station is nothing compared to the power of the Force, right? And there's that message, right? There's so much evil everyday people in the Empire can do, right? But hey, don't try to get to their level, to the level of the Sith, right? Because then you're gonna stop there. Regardless of that, I think also the message of characters like Chirrut Imwe, right? And his friend from the Guardians of the Wheel. I mean, that dynamic duo that you have the non-belief in the Force, and I'm blanking on his name. If you can help me right now, not Chirrut, but and then Chirrut being the believer. That whole scene with the Force healer in Episode 9 to me
That's all we
was a
needed.
tease of that.
That's all we
Exactly.
needed.
That's all we needed.
An
No
acknowledgement.
lightsabers, no force pushes, none of that, right? Acknowledgement that regardless, the Empire failed to suppress the force, right? And the force is like a spring. You might put concrete, you might put layers upon layers of dirt. The pressure of the water one day will bring it back to the forefront, right? I think that's very important. That what that tells us in connection to Rogue One. And I gotta say, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but Jean's story, in a way, is kind of like a mirror story to Andor himself, right? A street urchin abandoned by the circumstances by her own family, right? And then forcibly recruited by the rebellion. Maybe not as nasty as Luthen, as vicious as Luthen recruited Andor, but nonetheless, they basically force her to. It's either you're in the rebellion, or we have to kill you because you hurt too much.
Yeah.
Or you go to a break, right? So this is what this is, right? And to me, Andor pushes that to the next level. Rogue One.
Yeah, I feel like now, Rogue One, like we tend to rank things, right?
Right.
In my own mind, I think Rogue One is solidly now above Jedi. Like for me, I've always placed Empire, Star Wars, Jedi. I know we vary on here, but it's like I think it's clearly elevated Rogue One. It's made Rogue One somehow a better movie. There's more at stake here. We know what's at risk now. Like we have a relationship. We sadly know, like we've all seen Rogue One now, but we know that like Bix is waiting. It's also changed the way we look at Cassian and Jin, because we had thought maybe initially like, okay, we should
had a thing,
yeah. And now you can't look at that with his eyes open, thinking he's thinking about Bix.
Mm-hmm.
He's
just comforting Jin because Jin is thinking of her dad, but he's thinking of Bix.
And they're comforting each other in this moment.
Exactly.
Like we did it as a total. Here's a crazy idea: man, woman can be platonically,
talking.
And I think the thing is like it hurts more because I still think like. I want to believe like that people end up happy, but we know that's not true. And like Rogue One doesn't work if anyone survives.
And I'm putting the historian hat right here, right? A historian of Latin America. To me, that scene when they know that they did something good, but maybe not a lot of people are going to remember them, makes me think perhaps of the hundreds and not thousands of disappeared from South America to the dictatorships, right? About, I try to fight, I did it, and if my family remembers me, so be it, right? And it's that grief, it's that sadness, it's that historical parallel, right? Of how much they made an impact, right? Even if they're not here any longer with us, but that their memories will never be forgotten, right? What they did, their sacrifice, basically.
Yeah, that's like, and again, Star Wars has always been this triumph of Luke and Han and Leia, and they're important parts of the story, but like there are these other people, and every single one, all the way down to Melshi, to Luthen, to everyone, like Mon Mothma's failed marriage and the fact that she had to sell her kid off to support a rebellion, that she'll, it's a tragedy to survive this. And none of these people are doing this for their own good. They're doing this for the hope that the next generation might. It's such a giving thing. None of this. And I think if I have to be negative for a second, it frustrates me after watching Andor to have the sequel trilogy. Because
I agree.
How does Mon Mothma, who has held this ship together, how does all of this fall apart again right after their greatest victory over the Emperor? The Zahn trilogy made sense. You've got this rogue warlord who is a genius coming back. who has access to this cryptic fleet of dreadnoughts. For those who aren't familiar, we're talking about the Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, Last Command, came out in 91, 92, 93, somewhere in that range.
93, yeah.
Yeah, phenomenal. That's the only thing I can think in. Frankly, those books are the only things I think now, Alan, that can go toe-to-toe with Andor.
And hopefully I'm crossing my fingers that they take some inspiration from those books for the Ahsoka season 2.
Yeah, I mean,
clearly, and the Mandalorian and Grogu film,
Yeah, like they've clearly been retconning some of that stuff in, right? But it's like
it's good,
So if we were going to have episodes 7, 8, and 9, it just wasn't planned out. The love and the respect given to Tony Gilroy said he didn't have to respect Star Wars. He was trying to create the stories that right and so forth. But it was but he was also understood the rules and where the stories were going and the messages he was trying to send. And the sequels were just let's make some Star Wars movies. Here's a lightsaber. Here's a Wookiee.
Here's nostalgia.
Right.
Nostalgia, right.
Look, we're not on a snow planet. We're on a salt planet. Yeah.
Look, it's not a Death Star. It's a death planet.
Yeah. It's not an AT. It's not an AT-AT. It's a gorilla AT-AT.
Right. It's not Darth Vader. It's his emo grandkid.
Yeah.
Right. It's like,
what if we rode horses on a Star Destroyer?
God, dude, don't get me started on episode 9, man. I remember being there in the movie theater in 2019. I had my cousins from Veracruz coming over that Christmas time. We were so stoked, dude. It was 10 of us in the theater. I bought all the tickets as a gift to everyone, and I was just like, "Did we just saw the Sith troopers 5 minutes in screen? Did we just saw them for 5 minutes?" And oh my God, man!
Am I allowed to curse on my own podcast?
That's up to you, buddy.
Carajo is what I have to say. I mean, coño, it's so bad.
Coño.
It's so bad. This is not a podcast. We should probably do a critical deconstruction of the sequel.
The sequels.
At some point in time,
I agree.
We're gonna need more horchata. We're gonna need more cerveza. We're gonna need a lot more. We should just get plowed.
More rum, because
you know what we'll do? We'll do it. We'll actually do it at the reception of your wedding.
Sounds good.
I'll just run around with a mic, Dime, let's go, and just let it rip. However, so it's like the sequel trilogy negates, because we also know now that there's about to be a Thrawn fight.
Right.
How does I almost and again, not to harp on there are pieces I actually like Daisy Ridley as Rey. I actually like her performance.
I do. Here's the thing. I thought the actors
did the best they could.
It's like Hayden with episode 2, right? All these actors get all this crap for their actor.
He just didn't have.
He is. Give him the right script, right?
Are you going to turn down?
Give him the right story.
You going to turn down the opportunity to be Anakin Skywalker? Come on.
Of course not. Right? Or Paul Dameron, right? Somehow Palpatine has returned. I'm give Oscar Isaac some decent freaking lines. He's a high caliber actor, man. Come on.
Also, thank you for not making him Cassian and Bix's kid. I was like, don't you do that.
No. I mean, no. Dameron family and their family, right? They can be friends, but they're different.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so let's bring this back. I don't want to drift too far off and coat this in sequel nonsense.
No.
I love my children too much to let them watch The Last Jedi. I still think, which I think is the abomination of the 3. All right, why did you do that to Luke? Mark Hamill says it's bad. Okay, I'm sorry. All right.
No, I was gonna say there's a way to show how you can fail as an organization from getting yourself by lackeys that don't believe and there's no trust in each other, like parts of the rebellion have shown us in Andor.
That's what Andor does so well. They don't work with. They don't like each. They don't trust each other. Saw's off doing his thing. Shit, they're considering having Saw killed.
Exactly. Imagine if Luke in episode 8 had the same dramatic tension and distrust as the characters in Andor season 2 had for Rey, right? Who would have thought? Anyways, I just want to say that.
All right, so we've been jawing at this for about an hour and 14 minutes and 10, 11 seconds, 12, 13
and it
seconds,
feels like 10 minutes.
I know, just say, right? All right, let's do our final thoughts here on Andor. Season 1, Season 2, Rogue One. I have one Star Wars tattoo on my entire body, which is right here. It's in Orabash. You've seen it before. And it quite literally means never more than 12. from that Narkina 5 episode, Kino, a line issued
Lloyd.
by Kino Loy, like not a throwaway character, but again, not our hero, right? I have loved Star Wars for almost 50 years. And the one piece of this I put on my body forever is from this television show. When you think about Andor, what is Andor going to mean to you? Are you going to be able to watch this again? Like, how do you feel?
I'm planning to get the logo tatted in my forearm, right? Because
no,
yeah,
we are like, this was the other thing. Are we getting the Andor Eagle? Is that what we're doing?
right, the Starbird from the Rebellion, but the Andor version of it.
I was thinking like right here.
I was thinking like,
well, I don't have any spot right here, but like,
well, I have this forearm free. So
I was thinking I could put it on the back of my, on the back
there
of
you
my
go.
tricep. Do you want? Is that what we're gonna do? Are we gonna do the Andor Starbird, the Andor Starbird?
That's what I want to do, man.
Well, I mean, because I can't do the thing, but I can do that between now and then. Like, I can show. Like,
there you go.
I got a big spot there in my arm. All right, so
there you go. I have this.
All right, for you guys listening, Alan and I are getting more Star Wars tattoos.
Yeah.
So okay, so tell me, how you feel? Like, think about and like, what do you hope happens next with Star Wars? Because we got the second season of Ahsoka coming up, which I enjoyed. It was enjoyable.
It's good.
It's good. It's solid. It's like Mandalorian kind of fell off. I have a friend of mine. I told her, like, text me the second you finish Andor season 2. She just texted. Perfection. She just texted me. All right, go ahead. What's your hopes for Star Wars moving forward?
My hopes for Star Wars is that the overlords at Disney realized that there's a space for the whimsical, more children-oriented Star Wars, which is great, right? Which we all grew up with.
Okay.
Skeleton Crew, which was great, right? But maybe not my cup of tea because I'm older, whatnot, and I loved it. But there's also a space for a greedier, more adult-themed Star Wars, right? And I'm just here thinking of the possibilities, right, of doing a show, just a limited one season, 6-7 episodes of, again, in between Empire, Return of the Jedi, of the spies, that the Bothans, right? Like, what do they look like in canon? Who are they? Give me names. Give me Genevieve O'Reilly directing the Home One with Admiral Akbar on the run from the Imperial Navy, right, or something like that. Or, for example, something greedier after the Skywalker saga. Some new generation of Jedi that are dealing with greater things. Genocide. Like how does a Jedi stop something like Gorman from happening in the middle of it? You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? Right? Like hard themes, right? That connect to a real world by mixing some of that whimsical stuff. I think we've been spoiled, Jason. I think as fans, there's a before and after. And I think that before and after is Andor season 1 and 2, particularly 2, Rogue One, as long with it, and the world of Star Wars before all of that. That's the before and after, right?
I'm not a fan generally of adaptations of work because it's like I want original stuff. But
right,
you and I have both played some of the older Star Wars games, the Tales of the Jedi, stuff like that.
Knights of the Old
Republic. Okay, so here you go. Ready? Because there were references to it was canonized.
Right.
I want the Rakata. Like,
I
want that. I genuinely think you could tell us the Tales of the Jedi. I think Tales of the Jedi, you could actually tell the story of Ulick and Kay and Nomi Sunrider, one of the great women in Star Wars storytelling. Exar Kun, the Freedom Nad, all this stuff. I think they're there. Do you ever watch the cutscenes that are available for like the video games? Because I think sometimes they do a much better job telling the stories. They capture them in so many better ways. Like I can just watch them for 20, 30, 25 minutes.
I agree. Like a lot of the greediness of like the Jedi Outcasts video games. Or I'm thinking here. Remember those Dark Horse comics that came out in the middle of the prequels, right? About the Clone Wars, the original Clone. How greedy, how dark some of those things are, right? And like Clone Wars, right? Everybody loves Clone Wars, right? Everyone and their grandmother loves Clone Wars and Filoni, right? What if we take the greedy approach of that and tell some stories about like the siege of Jabin, right? The big planet that surrounds Jabin 4 from the comics, right?
What about the PTSD of these guys?
Exactly. Or what about some of these clone soldiers being discarded as veterans and abandoned by the Empire, right?
Well, you know what happens then is that you end up a Blade Runner. You have organic guys who don't survive that long, and now they're dealing with the fact that they're going to die in 6 months.
Win-win continuation of the Bad Batch, right?
Exactly. Right. So you've got that. Like I said, I'm interested in Mangold's like origin of the Jedi story. I like Mangold as a director, especially when he's like, because Logan was really good.
It was incredible.
Because the studio finally let him do what he needed to do with Wolverine, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's as good as Gilroy, but I don't think anybody's as good as Gilroy.
I agree.
So I'm just like, I want to savor this, and I don't want to compare anything to Andor, because it's like comparing things to Empire Strikes Back. It's just not fair.
Right.
I really just want to be happy that I really finally got. I'd always wanted a Star Wars series set in like a real universe that happened to be Star Wars, with real themes and real and I got it. And if you want to make Skeleton Crew now, or you want to go as like, I got what I wanted, man. I got the story. Like I just need to be happy and just enjoy. And look, if you like the sequels, man, that's cool, man. That's just it's not my thing. There's enough Star Wars out there for you, right? It doesn't, whatever, right? I just feel like now we've got this critical piece of like this. So,
if Andor season 2 does not get most of the Emmys, especially in the lead actress categories or supporting, I'm rioting, man.
I feel like Shogun may have made that possible. Because your period piece, it shouldn't get written off because it's science, space fantasy, science fiction, whatever. Right. This is a war series. Genevieve O'Reilly, I think. Everybody, man. Diego Luna taking this role. All of these guys, and also I want to say this, and I really mean this, right? I grew up as a real nerd. I didn't have a lot of friends. I still wrestle with this. It was like kind of like my own shyness and such.
You got me both, dude. That's what we have in common about like Star Wars is a refuge, right? I went through the same thing. So
for these people, like Diego Luna, to wrap his arms around this and take so much pride in this, for me to listen to like Ben Mendelsohn to say, "Hey, I came back to this because I really loved being part of this." All of these amazing actors, and we didn't even do enough justice talking about Deidre tonight, and what she did. Because what a great villain she was through this entire series. Man, I love Star Wars, Alan. And there was a long time growing up where I had to push it off and be like, it's not cool. It's not cool to like Star Wars. It's not cool to like this thing that is so intrinsically part of me. Man, I just love Andor. Brother, I am so glad. I was so like, this is
likewise.
I'm so glad we do this tonight. We have to watch.
I'm really happy we found the time. And we got to talk about this because we really needed to.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do Notting Hill sometime. We're gonna have to go.
Yeah,
let's just go back and do all the rom-com. We'll do a rom-com next, something like that. We'll cry. We'll do About Time or something. I don't know. No say. All right, brother. I am so glad you made it here. Thank you for being here. Man. Thank you for being my friend.
Likewise, it's an honor.
Igual.
All right, and remember, I have friends everywhere.
Duns and Sky. God, there's so many lines here, man. So much stuff. All right. For those of you listening in, thank you so very, very much for coming in, for listening to us talk about Andor, for being part of our own little rebellion in this podcast. We've got a whole bunch of stuff coming on. This was a quick thing we wanted to do for you guys, talk about this thing. We've got a whole bunch more pods coming up for you. I don't know, soon. So thanks for being here, and may the force be with you.
Que la fuerza los acompañe.
See that.